to it that feels haunted, and I love that. And it just isn't the case here as much, which is kind of a bummer. But
FYI, I hit the live button. Oh, now I see
all good.
why this thing doesn't capture my audio sometimes.
Nope.
Give me 1 second while I fix this, because I don't have a Yeti microphone here, yet it's saying there's a Yeti microphone here.
Like the input is confused.
Yeah. So let's see if I can remove you.
I'm gonna have another tech support day with him because this laptop has just been misbehaving.
Yeah.
Your laptop or
my laptop?
Oh, yeah, I see.
I don't know what happened. It's out of. Let me add a source here, because I bought a microphone specifically for today because I'm away from home.
Gotcha.
Bolt, do you mind jumping into the YouTube just to see if it's running?
Yeah, it's running.
If the audio is good, can you hear me? Not like last time where it sounded like you could hear me, but then I sounded like a robot. You're the robot around here, not me.
Yeah, I can hear you on the stream.
All right. I have the mic up against me like if I'm talking on old school radio.
Get that Howard Stern sound.
Oh, man, I miss Howard Stern. I miss it when he was
still around.
He is, but now he's behind the paywall.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's on Sirius XM, and you had to pay to get on Sirius XM.
Alas.
I was telling that to my buddy the day. Like, you know why Joe Rogan got famous? Is like, why? Because Joe Rogan is on a podcast. You just go download. To get to Howard Stern, we need to have a Sirius XM account and get in, and we can't just get in to listen to Howard Stern anymore. That's what sucks.
Yeah.
But
just watch the clip on YouTube. I feel like that's the way to go these days.
That's the way to go. But I'm like, back in the day, he used to get the cool call-in people, which we might start doing around here, right, Bolt? If we pick up traction on our small burgeoning podcast here. So, everybody who's tuning in, we are live today with Dylan Clark. He is a very prolific, very talented short film director, and well, I could speak here a bunch of films that I saw that are great, but I'll point out the top two in my book. Portrait of God, which is, I think, one of the more provocative ones, and then, oh no, I'm having a burp in my head.
That's
Polly listened Polly's podcast.
Oh yeah, Storytime.
That one. I'm like, I saw Storytime. You know what the worst part about it is? I was watching that on my own in a house. So here's what happened.
Perfect.
I'm listening to a podcast in a house, and then I'm doing a 360 scan. The scan is taking forever, so I had to charge the camera. And I start browsing through my online. And then I start seeing this, oh, cool, another one. I got this one recommended to me by one of my fellow Horror Talk guys. So I click on it. Arlie, you know who you are. I'm going to give you a shout out. So I click on it. As I'm watching it, I'm listening to this watching this. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm alone in a burnt down abandoned house right now. I will never match this aesthetic again.
Yeah, you were the more likely victim. I feel like the more likely protagonist. That's funny.
You should just once again he can tell you the stories, right, dude? I'm on top of a roof and overlooking this creepy forest. I'm like, hey guys, check it out. He's like, come on, stop doing the main character thing like Wayne's World. It's just not even funny anymore.
It's only a matter of time before you are going to find yourself the victim of a horror story at one of these places. For
that's
sure.
What that's what I've been telling him. Let me get on the insurance policy because there's no way this is going to happen to you, and I don't get paid for it. When I've been calling about this for months now.
Listen, I can sit here and tell you I'm Hispanic. I can sit here and tell you all the creepy. If I get a writing credit, I will share with you all the creepy stuff that I have seen over the years, and it's just let's put it this: Ash Williams doesn't have anything on me with the level of creepy shit I've seen over the years.
Damn, all right.
From all the weird haunted houses that my family has moved into over the years, and I could go on, but we're not here about my weird adventures. We're here to talk about your films and your awesome stuff. Our adventures can be our own podcast someday. So
I want to hear it. So another time we'll have to just hear about all your adventures.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah, thank you for the warm introduction. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I actually wanted to go and ask you. So how did you get started? I'm never gonna fix that backdrop. So whatever. People, this is my disgusting backdrop. I tried my best.
That's all good. I think I got started doing shorts that were not horror. I was into photography and writing when I was in elementary school, and comic books. And I really wanted to make a short superhero film. Again, very much not horror. And so I got some friends together and we made these really bad short X-Men fan films, basically. And they were horrible. And I knew it at the time, which was crushing to me as a kid. And then when we moved from where we had done those, because we were living overseas at the time, we moved back to the States, and I started watching horror movies. And I remember watching, in specific, The Blair Witch Project, which was a very formative movie for me. And I found it really funny that movie, it was the first found footage film I had seen, to my knowledge. And that was the first time I saw a movie that looked as bad as my superhero films looked. Where I was like, for some reason, this movie looks like it was made by me in a bad way, right? But it works. That's the point, and it works for this movie, and they're getting away with it, and it's very scary. And I really loved the movie as well, and so I thought to myself, well, we can do something like this. We can't make these superhero films. We're missing all these things, but we could do something like The Blair Witch Project as a 14-year-old. And we couldn't, but we had the resources to. So we made a bunch of short horror films, and that was when around the time that short horror stuff was really blowing up on YouTube for the first time, in a big way. Lights Out, that kind of era.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and so it took a big inspiration from that, and it kind of started to make us make these much shorter, much more honed in projects that we could put on YouTube and get out there and practice without thinking, it was going to be some big important thing. It was just practice, short horror kind of scene. Yeah, and that kind of just led to where I am today.
Quick question. I was about to ask you, but you got me right there ahead of time. So one question. How were you when you see the Blair Witch for the first time? Just out of curiosity. Yeah.
I want to say I was 12?
12, yeah. So I guess we're roughly around the same age. I saw it when I was in 4th grade, yeah. I'm when I first saw it, what was cool was a lot of us thought that movie was real at first.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's what we all thought, it was real. And then little by little it's revealed, no, it's not real, but you're like, wow.
You had sure, me. Though?
Yeah, you had me, because I was born in Maryland, and I was filmed. I was born in Cumberland, Maryland, and I have family in Silver Spring. And that was the film because Burkittsville is an actual place, and that was the film for the longest time.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome.
You're in the camp of people that I know that were inspired by that, because what's cool about horror is that I always felt less is more. You can do so much more. It's cool you mentioned it too. The next segment we're doing, Red Bolt, is found footage.
Yes. Oh, cool.
We're actually going to dive into found footage.
That's awesome.
Because that one is cool because it makes you think of, is this happening? And sometimes the creepiest stuff is the stuff you don't really see. Much like Poppy, right? You don't see what's coming after Poppy, but for some reason you're like, I don't want to see what's coming after her.
Well, that's what's so forgiving about horror as from a filmmaking perspective, where as a filmmaker with no budget, it's very hard to make your projects work when you're swinging for something that requires resources you don't have. Mm-hmm. But less is more working in horror. It just means that the biggest thing you don't have is your biggest asset. And that's huge. That's why I think so many people start in horror, obviously. It's continued to be true. Because anytime I do less is more, it's because it's scarier, but also I literally can't do more. So with what I have, so it just works out nicely. But yeah.
But it works out, but in my book, it's the best way. Because, for example, a lot of us were always like, what does the Blair Witch look like? What does the Blair Witch? Then we saw what the Blair Witch looks like, and it's like, party's over. We don't.
Yeah.
You were better off hidden in the closet, lady. Like, go back.
Yeah. Well, there was weird. I remember, not to get too deep into that, but there was a weird, like, I remember the screenwriter saying something like, "Well, that's not actually the witch. Like, that was actually something else."
That sounds like someone backtracking on his choice.
I don't know. I'm curious. I mean, clearly, it's supposed. You're supposed to. It felt like you were supposed to think it was the witch. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, it's totally true. Less is more.
Yeah. So, actually, I wanted to ask you something. That's the one that I think all three of us. I'm speaking for my fish co-host when he eventually jumps in, if he does. The one that got to us the most was Portrait of God. Because what's cool about that one is less is more, and what you don't see scares the hell out of you. But in that one, what you do see starts to kind of slowly fade into the camera, and you're like, do I? It was one of the first times in years I've actually asked the question, do I really want to see what's behind the curtain on that one? Like, you know, we grow up with like, awesome. Right? Like, you always ask questions to yourself, like, what does this look like? And then you spend hours like, yeah, maybe it looks like this. Like, maybe the stuff inside the case in Pulp Fiction was this, that, and the other. And then when you actually see it, it's like, And then this one, it's like, you don't want to see what's in the portrait, partner. You really just don't. Trust us, you don't. But how did you get to that one? That's that's like one of our curiosities. Like, can you explain to us a bit of how the process went into with Portrait of God? Or
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'll answer the question, but also I just wanted to mention it's so interesting in the Blair Witch conversation as well.
Go ahead.
Like, we all want to see the witch, right? Like, we think we want to see the witch. And we want to see what's in the case in Pulp Fiction. It's so interesting, that kind of playing with the audience, because we know as an audience that the tease is the fun of it. And at the same time, you do want to know, but you don't. It's that interesting game. And I think the short Portrait of God was definitely based kind of around that, because I think a lot of short horror films build around the idea of, you're going to see this entity, whatever it is, a ghost, a demon, whatever. You're going to see it probably once at the very end in like a jump scare. That's like typically kind of the format that we've seen a lot of.
Yeah.
And otherwise it'll be very in shadows. And so as far as Portrait of God went, that was something I didn't want to do. I wanted to like tease the image of this thing, but not fully give it at any point. And as far as like how we came to the project in general, for me, it was just kind of incepted by wanting to make something and knowing what resources I had at that time, which was this creepy kind of dark classroom seemed like a really good option we could use. That was inside, because we were upstate New York. It was, I actually can't remember if it was cold, but it's a little harder to shoot outside in general. So we wanted something that was inside, wanted something that we had access to, that had, we could maneuver equipment to pretty easily. There were all these reasons that was a good location to shoot in, and then it became about building something around that location. So since it's a classroom, there was a projector, there's that screen that rolls up and down, there's a desk there for her to sit at. So it really was built around those things. And then the God side of it and the religious side of it came from, how can we kind of create a character that has a very simple but interesting goal in this setting. And of course, it's an academic setting, so that's why she was a student. So it's one of those things where, like, kind of laid out all the cards out on the table of what we had, and then tried to arrange them in the most interesting way. If that answers the question.
No, that's actually pretty cool. So that means you pretty much put together this thing on the fly from the sounds of it. Like, we have a location, we have our stuff, we have our resources. Now let's make some magic happen with that one, which was pretty cool. And
thank you.
Where I go on that one was, where in New York was that one at? Just out of curiosity, because our buddy here worked in a uni for a while, and some of us have also been in some of these places. I'm curious.
Gotcha. It was I went to Ithaca College, so that was upstate New York, like right by Cornell.
Yeah, I've been to Ithaca before. It's as soon as you said it, I'm like, yeah, you were up by the mountains. That area in itself has like a very sort of cool, sort of cold feeling to it. Like, even the architecture on the inside shines. I'm like, when I saw that, I'm like, that has to be Rochester or Ithaca. I'm trying to figure out which one.
Exactly. Yep.
Which is pretty cool.
There you go.
So
thank you.
So is this like how you tend to do it though? Like, oh, we have a setting, we have an idea, and let's make lemonade, right? Like put the lemons together, make lemonade.
It depends, but that is, I think for these shorts, that's often been the case because we're trying to do them for, I mean, you don't have to do it this way, obviously, but we've been trying to do a lot of these as like very small, very cheap projects. And by necessity, you have to figure out how you can make that not feel cheap, even though it is, which means using things you have, of course. So that often comes around, that results in creating stuff around the things, based on the things around you. But it's interesting because now, as I'm trying to write bigger projects and features and all these other things, I've kind of had to like use what I've learned from that, but also unlearn some of it, where like I'm trying to craft things write things that are interesting that come from nothing, as opposed to these shorts, which have really come from things I've had. So like I have the cards on the table and I know I just have to arrange them. Now I feel like it's more up to me to like come up with the cards and arrange them. So that's been an interesting thing to change and learn into. But for the shorts, it's usually that.
Cool. Well, you're doing major projects right now, like full-length feature films?
I'm working towards it. Been doing a lot of writing post-grad. That is the goal, to like make the next project that. I'd still love to do more shorts, but I'm definitely putting my energy into features. It's very hard to make a feature, of course. So like whether it happens is always like, no matter how much you push for it, it's always a big question mark. But that's the goal. So
that's really cool.
Thank you.
Can you share a bit of us with what you're working on, or is that I'm not going to ask anything?
I could say a little bit. I mean, we've been working on, like, the great thing about short horror films is that they work well as proof of concepts. It makes it a lot easier to sell things when you can show someone like, well, here's what a scene from it would look like. And so that has been kind of a jumping off point without getting too specific. Like some of the shorts have been like stretching those out has been a goal. And of course that comes with its own challenges because you don't want to make it feel like a stretched out version of it. It should feel like it's expanding on it, but not stretching it. So some stuff based on shorts and then also some original stuff. As to which will happen is kind of up to fate a little bit. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, fun fact, Evil Dead was based off of a short. Like they filmed the original one was pretty much a small short.
What was it called originally?
Within the Woods. I only remember it because there was a bad musical that had that name or something like that. So it's like it's weird. That one goes like it's like whack-a-mole. Sam Raimi doesn't put it on too much promotional material. When it pops up, you get 5 seconds to watch it, and then he whacks it down back into the oblivion, and then it pops up again somewhere else, and he whacks it again. So I saw bits and pieces of it over the years, and I thought it was pretty fascinating that this was essentially the birth of what I think of one of the first mainstream cult horror stories. Like everybody knows Evil Dead in our circles.
Yeah, and he made it at like 19.
Yeah, at 19.
At some ungodly age.
He dropped out of college, crazy. And like they were squatting it, like all the stuff you hear with Evil Dead. You're like, I would do that if I knew what I was going to get out of it.
I know, right? Well, there's always a risk, which is the crazy thing. And you hear about the successes, usually not the failures. So it's like,
you know, when he puts the chainsaw.
When you do hear about when you do hear about the failures, they had to be so momentous that it kind of ends up becoming a success story in a way, a successful fail story.
No, I know what you mean.
Like
I know what you mean.
Eater?
Like Flesh Eater.
Oh, you don't know Flesh Eater?
Should I?
No, I'm going to tell you about Flesh Eater.
No.
I was like, is this a cult film? I'm unfamiliar.
Yes, it is. It's a cult film.
Depending on your meaning of the word cult.
Okay. Interesting.
So you know who Bill Hitzman is, right? Do you know who Bill Hitzman is? The first zombie?
Yeah, like the...
So...
Oh, wait, no.
Bill Hitzman was the first zombie in Night of the Living Dead. He was the first guy who walks out shambling towards the dead, towards
Got it.
Barbara or whatever. So, around the time that Night of the Living Dead was being shot, he came out and said, "I'm going to make my own zombie movie, and I'll do it better," or something along those lines. And he totally just used Of the Living Dead, and he placed himself as sort of this Stubbs the Zombie-esque zombie, and he decides to just terrorize the town. It's all part of the movie. But the way the movie is shot, you can hear all the sound effects. There's excessive sex sequences that go on in a zombie movie.
Nice.
I just love looking at my God.
This is making me think I need to watch it, actually.
Oh,
no, absolutely not. After this, you make sure you delete this section from your mind.
Go watch Flesh Eater. Trust me, it's amazing. It's just, it's so bad, it's good.
Oh my God.
It's shot up in Pennsylvania, too. It's such a bad
Why have I not heard of this?
Why are you lying to him, Jack? Why are you lying to him?
Because it's like, to my understanding, it was so bad that it was pretty much stricken from a lot of records. He has it under like 3 different titles. Wow. It's like Zombie Nosh, Flesh Eater, Revenge of the Living Dead. It's so funny. But you could just kind of tell, like, this is a guy who had a vision. And goddamn it, against all odds, even probably good counseling, he put that vision together and he made Flesh Eater. And
well, hey, like you said, Bull, it is memorable for not working, and sometimes that's how it goes.
I did say that. I did do that.
It's memorable because I love that movie.
I even think of like, have you guys seen American Movie? The documentary about
American. Which one? There's a few. I've heard. For some reason, I have Kentucky Fried Movie in my head, and that's not the right one.
It's about these filmmakers in, oh gosh, where are they? I'm blanking so hard, but the point is, it's about this guy who like desperately wants to make this movie, and it's not a very good movie, but like it's quite charming because he wants to make it, and the documentary is great. The movie didn't end up being anything, but yeah, sometimes that happens. Okay. Even Tommy Wiseau, these guys.
I need to watch that because I'm writing a disaster artist-esque script about Flesh Eater because it's too funny.
Oh, awesome! Definitely watch it then. Definitely watch it. It's great.
Don't encourage you.
No, trust me. It's like, what goes through the head of somebody that says, "Hey, look, this lady's naked. We're just gonna film her being naked for a solid 5 seconds." Film.
That's good. That's the whole shot.
Yeah, the whole shot. They even like make a point to up and down her being naked, and then she walks into the shower. This is all happening in real time. Goes into the shower, showers, walks out, shows herself naked again, dries off, puts a towel on, and then the zombie comes and kills some people. That's an actual secret.
Scary. That's pretty scary.
It's scary that someone put this together.
The weird thing, you said Bill Hinsman. Bill Hinsman, that the name is also the co-writer of Talk to Me, which is random. That's what I thought you were talking about for a second. But I feel like I should have known the original Bill Hinsman.
It's funny, but it's like I forgot the name until like this popped up on my TikTok. Somebody's like, "Have you heard of this?" I'm like, "No." You can blame that person, Bo, for me. I made them watch it.
Oh, I will.
I'm going to watch it now. I'm afraid to say it's a done deal.
At least, okay, if you're gonna watch it, just make sure you don't end up paying for it.
It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. Noted. It's like one of those rights-free movies. Yeah, it's a rights-free movie. There you go. See?
I'll watch it. My homework.
There you go.
That's funny.
Just do it fair. When you do watch it, just let us know what you thought.
I will. I definitely will. I hope I actually do watch it. I'm saying I'll watch it. I will need to force myself to sit down if it is as you say
it's okay if you don't. Honestly, it's okay if you don't.
Is it? Okay. I'll tell you if I try. I'll tell you about my journey with this movie.
Look, man, it's a bad movie. You won't make it past the first 20 minutes. I did because I'm a sucker for stupid things. Like, I just can't look away. But
I did because he lied to me.
Wait, you said it's a masterpiece?
I told them it was a hilarious romp, and then they both just said, okay. Let's do this.
I'm sorry. All right, noted.
Yes. So, I wanted to ask, what you were before, when I'm annoyed. I didn't hit start when you were going into the stuff that inspired you. Oh, sup, Red?
Oh.
Hey, guys. This is Red.
How you going? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yes.
Just the
just
fish.
turn on my camera. So there's proof that I'm not a fish.
We can't not disprove that. We live in that type of era now.
That's true. Well, that's true. And I have a whole thing on how we actually are fish, but we don't need to go into that now.
What do you mean we don't need to go into
I'm getting mixed messaging here.
You tell me you're not a fish, then you tell me we not. Never mind. Anyways,
I'm saying it's not just that it's not that just I'm a fish. It's that we're all fish. We're all part of a great fish brotherhood.
That's right, Kanye. We are all the fish, and we're all back into the ocean. So yeah. So I'm the one asking questions. You guys, come on. This is a team effort here, all right? I'm not Wolverine. This isn't the X-Men, all right? Let's go.
Well, I was waiting for my chance because you were so excited, but...
Of course I'm excited, but you tell me to pipe down, and then you get into it. God.
That's just so rude, but, pipe down. I want to get more into, because we talked a lot about Portrait of God. My personal favorite was The Remains, because I never got hit with that type of nightmare fuel in ages. I was so excited when I saw that short. That was my personal favorite. So what were your thought process in creating that? Because I've never seen anything like that.
Thanks. The weird thing about that project was that it was this entirely different script originally, and we were preparing for months to shoot it. And we had all the props and we had our location, and it was a little bit of a bigger project than what we're talking about. It was written first, and then we found all the things we needed to make it. It wasn't made around the resources. But right before we were going to shoot, I think 3 days before we were going to shoot, before actors had arrived or anything, but everything was locked in, one of the actors got COVID, and this was years ago, so it was a much bigger... obviously it would have been a problem, but it was a huge problem. And... So we basically had to decide what to do because we were going to lose the crew if we did another weekend. We'd lose the location, and it was very dependent on that location. So what we decided to do was take the one actress we still had and take all the props we had bought and shoot it in our apartment and make it something entirely different. Again, based around what we had in this case. So it kind of was forced to change into the more kind of familiar small horror project and conceived in the way that we'd made all those other short horror films. But it's just funny because it was never the plan to make it what it ended up being. It was about before a woman taking care of her dying mother, and she has this baby monitor for her. And so it was entirely different. The only thing we had to get was the urn to flip it into a much cheerier direction, of course. And yeah, that's kind of how it came to be. So we just rewrote it pretty quickly and shot a few days later. Yeah, that's how that happened, which is very strange.
Yeah, I was just
trust yourself with impulses and being on the fly. That's the best way to create some of the best stuff. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
No, if you heard me, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I did. I think that's it, for me, it was helpful in just being we could just not make anything. We'd lose some money, or we can make something. And I kind of had to, as a creative, try to be okay with it not being good potentially, because it was not something I had planned for. And it was very sad to move on from this project that I had been preparing for. So to just be okay, let's just make something and see what happens, as opposed to making nothing and being very comfortable with making nothing. So that was a good lesson for me in that experience. And yeah.
My basic media production professor in college said that the first rule of filmmaking is get it done.
Yeah. Which is very hard to actually do. And in a lot of cases, I don't practice that. But this is an example where, in some ways, I felt like I had to, which was good. And we had to finish it because it was for a class as well, which helped a lot.
Right.
But we didn't have to make our own film, so I could have just done something that wasn't, my project. But yeah, it's very true.
Were there some short films that you've made that you kind of either wish you couldn't either make into a full ledge film, or you kind of ones that you wish you, if you had more time or different resources, you would kind of make it a remastered version of it?
Yeah. Yes, there's one short. It's called Behind the Frame, and I made it. I wish I could say I made it like a decade ago. Where like it's just one of those where I like the idea. I think it's like a really fun short horror concept. I don't think I would like expand that or anything. I would want it to just be like a tight 5 to 7 minute, because I think it's like, I guess it is like 7 minutes, but it should be shorter. It should be better. And for me, like that project just does not work. But the concept does. And so that's one where like, maybe I'd like make it a scene in a feature that I write down the line. Like I could see that being a fun scene. I think as the short is now, I'm not happy with it, and I wish it were good, because I could see a version of it that is good. So.
Oh yeah, that was another one of my favorites Behind the Ring, because it's like, as a computer person with my background, it's just like, imagine like people like always want to play God with like appearances and stuff like that, and then you actually get like immediate consequences or results of that.
Yeah,
because
actually,
that was very fascinating.
Thank you. That one is actually a different one. I've just done so many picture ones that one was called Transfigure. A joke I had with my sister, who has done some of these with me, is that like the entity is always an image-based thing, because like we don't have an actor to play the scary thing. It's just the ghost will be images or videos or whatever. But that one I actually am fairly happy with. Like it's very short. I feel like we did all we wanted to do with it. But Behind the Frame is a different one that's longer, where she's like holding up the pictures and then like the printed out pictures and then taking them down. And that I feel could be better, unfortunately. But.
Well, that's one of those moments where it's like, there's something here. One day I shall revisit it as a part of a scarier anthologies type story or something. I go on to it. As someone who I write for fun, so sometimes I look at stuff, I'm like, oh, you could expand it this way. This would fit there. They've heard me pitch stories to them and stuff over the months.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We've got some good starts.
Yeah, we've
Are you all writers as well?
What's that, Dylan?
Are you all also writers?
Sort of. Like we write for fun. Animator, he consults with me, and I write for fun. And I come up with like concepts and stuff.
That's awesome.
So the problem is we live far away from one another, so we don't have time to just sit down and be like, let's do this, because,
I get it.
We're in different time zones. He's also part of a creepy place.
Things to line up. I'm in Colorado, so I'm 2 hours behind. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he lives near Colt City. It's pretty funny.
That way. Yeah.
It's I feel like the just throwing around ideas though is some of the most fun, like creative stuff. Once you're like getting deep into them, that's where it starts to get unfun again. So I feel like just talking with friends about ideas, love it. Like that's awesome.
Yeah, it's like one of the ways we spend time.
That's the easy part, because I think I forgot who I heard say this, but with some filmmaker, it was something to the effect of everybody has ideas, but not everybody has, the drive or the grit or the organizational skills or the connections or just kind of like the whole complete vision to really put it together.
I'm slowly losing my self-esteem because I have a lot of ideas, but I don't have the grit or the self-esteem.
You don't need self-esteem. Nobody has self-esteem.
Yeah, that's true, actually. You just got to jot them down.
Which is what I do. Our group chat serves as the time. I'm going to jot this down, and I'll eventually get to it when we can. I did start writing a few things.
That's great.
Again, this is not us. We want to hear about your stuff.
I appreciate it.
But enough about us.
No, I love to hear it.
Yeah. Dylan, do you have very detailed backstories for your characters? Do you kind of like know who they are in a deep sense, or is the brief time that we all have with them basically what you know about them?
There's part of me that wants to be like, yes, of course. Like, of course I know them. They're my friends. No, but I think only a couple of the shorts I like actually thought deeply about that. Like Remains was one of them, even though we didn't have a lot of time with it. that was one of those things where I was working with this professional actor who we had auditioned for this other film, and so we talked about that character. And oddly enough, the character was pretty similar to the character that was going to be in the other film, because it was still about like losing someone. In this case, it was a child as opposed to a parent. So we did talk about that character a lot, and that was very helpful for that dynamic between me and her. But with Portrait of God as well, a little bit, not quite as much as I think was there to talk about. Like, we talked about just why she wants to see this thing, why she wants to see God, and why the moments where she like looks deeper are the moments she does start to see it. So for things like that where it's built around like a character motivation, yes, but for a lot of the shorts, it's just like the girl, the boy who is attacked by the entity. And like, I can't say, in all honesty, yeah, like Poppy is a no name, but that like, I hate to say it, but that is the kind of thing where like the short is about the entity or about the hook, and that is kind of what takes center stage. So the character isn't as important, but yeah. But for features, very much, like, especially since I've been working a lot writing features, I find like it unlocks so much in a scene by scene to know what those things are, that like I find it completely necessary to know that stuff for longer writing. So
you find it just easier to know what the character would say or what they need to say if you just have that knowledge about them, if you've already kind of built that bedrock.
Yeah, and it doesn't like, I found that it doesn't need to be like you know everything about this person. You just know something really important about them that then fills in the gaps. Like, you can kind of infer things about them, and then you kind of learn who they are through the way you write them as you're writing them. And then by the time the project is ready to go, you should kind of know who they are by what's written and the backstory, the bit of backstory that you like put in place and knew really well at the beginning. Because I feel like also they never feel like people until you see like a face attached to them and you see an actor embody it, because then it feels like that fills in like the dimension that you're missing that feels very real. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It sounds like a lot of different kinds of writing where you're doing the thinking as you're writing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, I know people are different about it. Oh yeah, I was gonna say some people are different.
Yeah, if you're writing an essay, you don't really know what the argument is totally until you're finished with the essay.
Right.
Yeah.
But you have your bullet points to get you through, at least. Yeah. So that kind of thing.
I tried pulling that stunt once in college, and I got yelled at.
For the finished product, like what you turned in.
I wrote an essay about, I think, the Odyssey, and then I'm like, as I'm writing the essay for the Odyssey, I handed it to my professor, and they're like, "What was the point of your essay?" I'm like, I tried, but I look at it,
question.
You know when you finish, and then she's like, "Mm-hmm." You know what? Right? You know, she looks at me like, "You know what finish begins with?" No, I'll take that back. I'll hand it in tomorrow.
Pretty awesome.
I was never able to write an essay on something that I was like completely unfamiliar with. I needed to know something about the thing.
Well, I knew about the Odyssey. It's an epic story, but then when I was writing just about stuff, I don't know what the hell went on. I was just typing away like the guy in The Shining, like, and when I handed it, like, this has no structure. Sorry.
In the Odyssey, there's a lot of monsters, a lot of traveling, and a lot of meal breaks. That's really what the story is.
Yes,
you just
and a lot of
the
sex.
Meal break.
Yeah. Just talk about what the wine must have tasted like.
Yes, of course.
So, but with kind of the unseen things in your films, if there's an ending that's ambiguous, or if there's material in it that's sort of oblique and subtle, do you know everything that there is to know about what's happening, and it's up to us to figure it out, or is it just sort of like, this is what I made, and think of it what you want to think of it?
Yeah, it depends for me. I feel like a lot of the endings for me aren't that ambiguous, but there are a couple that are slightly more ambiguous, and like Portrait of God is more ambiguous. And for me with that one, I had written it knowing what I thought was going on. Like what I thought personally was like what the entity was. Like, is this entity even God? Like, what is it? What's going on? I had a sense of what I liked, but it's one of those things where, like, to me, it was so obvious that to answer that just made it less interesting. So if you're going to have an ambiguous ending, for me, I still want it to be satisfying, and hopefully it is satisfying, where like it still feels like this is the end of the short, as opposed to it just ended, oh shit, I didn't get any answers. It's like you get an answer and it's a kind of resolution, but it's still very open. Like, as long as it's checking like the box that makes it feel like it is finished but open, then I really like an ambiguous ending. And that's what we tried to do with that. So
I like that.
What's funny with Portrait of God... Oops, sorry. You good?
Yeah, it kind of felt like that one, I forget which book in the Bible, where it's like you have like calls to, like, if you like look at the face of God, people just like die, because that's what at least, correct me if I'm wrong, that's what I thought that was like the inspiration for it. So it's like, oh, there's like, let's take that and just like actually put a horror like tint on it. Because it's like, let's like draw it out to its like natural conclusion. Like what will happen if we brought that back to modern day?
Yeah, well, it's funny because like there's stuff in the Bible that's like, I don't know if this is what you're referring to or not, but like I believe it's in Sodom and Gomorrah when they're leaving and like God like destroys the city basically, or the angels do, and they're not supposed to look back as it's happening. And when they look back, trying to remember, I don't remember the people's names, but someone looks back and she turns into a pillar of salt. Like, that's the description. And so it's one of those things where like that is really scary to read, not scary to see probably. So, and there's a lot of stuff like that in the Bible that's like, if we actually visualized it, it would be not as satisfying as something more vague. Because, and then you look at like Lovecraft, right? That's always more vague, generally more vague. Like what it's doing to a person is more mental, and that is usually scarier. But so it was interesting to look to the Bible for inspiration as to like what it would actually do to you to look at God. Any of the actual concrete answers, we wouldn't really want to visualize, especially in a short film. So that was kind of interesting to try to figure out like how to end it on that note. But
what's funny is, growing up, people were like, don't watch horror movies, read the Bible, it's more wholesome. I'm like, you ever kind of sat there and looked at what's in the Bible?
The Bible is rough. Not everything makes it into Sunday school.
Yeah. Well, this was a really interesting conversation I had with someone who was talking about, like, I guess maybe I shouldn't get too deep into this because this is kind of personal, but we were talking about Christianity and opinions on horror, and how horror is like blasphemous, and some people like think you shouldn't be watching this because it's like almost dancing with the devil kind of shit. And I think the interesting conversation we had was like, well, horror actually oftentimes is very close to the sensibilities of like an Old Testament story, where it is this horrifying thing that's the antagonist, and so often the protagonist is God and religion, and you're saved by the power of Christ, right? So it's really interesting to have that conversation of actually these stories that are formative in this religion are kind of like horror stories. And by the end of them, they're often, and at least studio horror, like studio religious horror, often ends in a very pro-religious way. And so it's that interesting push and pull. But obviously, in this case, the antagonist was God. So I guess I'm not sure that was making too many people. Yeah, if you think, right. But like that's the premise, of course. So that maybe that didn't please people in that conversation. But
I mean,
I'm a Christian and I love horror films. And part of that is because my dad is a retired Lutheran pastor, and he's a massive horror fan. So I grew up with a lot of horror movies in a religious household. And he's told me that clergy actually generally, in his experience anyway, clergy like horror. And like part of it is what you're saying is it's about confronting evil, especially in movies like The Exorcist or The Conjuring. Yeah, you know, like the ending is often uplifting and very satisfying. In that way, and I think that, you know, part of being religious is like meditating on the nature of evil.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And for me with that short, it was like, I did not grow up religious, but I've been fascinated and like took religious studies classes. Not to say that means I know that much, but like it's something I've been fascinated in. For me, I think we get a lot of horror that deals with religion, but we don't get that many horror films that deal with just faith, right? And it's a faith that is like more disconnected from a specific religion. And not that we went too deep into it with Portrait of God, but that's something I found really interesting, where it's like that character, she is wearing a cross, but like to me, the entity could be any god, right? It's a nondescript god. And so it's like the idea of wanting to see your creator, as opposed to very specifically like, a Christian story that is about this one Christian god. It's like you could maybe apply that to just the general idea of faith and wanting to believe or see something that is your creator. So I thought that was interesting.
And the nice touch with that one, in my book, is my opinion, is the final shot you see of the character is that she's gripping on to that cross, that her hands are even bleeding by the end. It's like, I interpret that as she found faith in those moments because she's gripping as hard as she can. Yeah, my microphone is awful, so it might not be
right.
you. Just
I interpreted that as an allusion to the stigmata.
yeah.
I feel like I shouldn't say it. I feel like I will keep power to comment.
You don't have to tell me if I'm right or wrong.
But I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Think of it like this: we're three people talking about we're at a museum. We're three people talking about a painting in front of it, and you're just secretly watching us talk about it.
I love it. I love it.
That's what we are.
And you're standing behind the painting, either shaking your head or nodding your head.
Like,
I turn off my camera. This biggest head shake ever off camera.
But I actually wanted to ask you another question. Growing up, you watched horror growing up, right? Or
yes, I did. My uncle's like the big horror guy in the family. I mean, my dad likes horror as well, but he didn't like. I remember when I was really young, I really wanted to see The Shining, and he was like, "You're not seeing that till you're 16." And to me, obviously, that was like 1,000 years away. I was like, "That's ridiculous." He caved way earlier, but yes, I did. I watched horror growing up.
So what was your go-tos growing up? You know, like when back in the day you go to the video store, there's always those select ones that you just pick up because it's always there. Only those of us who went to the video store know this, Bolt. I know you didn't go.
Well,
you didn't know that.
I didn't go much. Like it was kind of starting to become less of a thing during my childhood, but there are some like covers of movies that like have stuck with me, even if they aren't movies that I actually liked that much or even saw at the time. So that I reflect fondly on. Like, strangely enough, Dead Silence, the cover of Dead Silence was one that I remember seeing.
With the zombie, right? Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah,
it's like her finger on the puppet's face. That one was really scary. But anyways, in terms of like the formative horror films, Blair Witch we were talking about, that was a big one for me. Big ones. I mean, I did see Exorcist pretty young, and I thought that was quite intense, but I wouldn't say that was formative. The Thing was a big one for me. I feel like they're not going to be hot takes necessarily.
I have a quick question. Why a lot of horror fans I've come to know in my what is it, about a year now in this like intrusive like sabbatical study of horror? Yeah. What is up with horror fans watching all this stuff at the unadvised age? Like, what is up with that? Like, it feels like that's the prerequisite into like actually into horror.
It's because that's when it's most like enticing. That's like because there's something very exciting about horror when it's edgy, right? Mm-hmm. Even if the horror itself isn't that edgy, but like at that age, everything is edgy, and so I feel like there's like that allure that you start to phase kind of out of. I don't know. I guess if you're older getting into horror, it still might feel edgy to you, but at a young age, it's like inherently edgy, which is exciting.
It's weird because I am in camp that is like seeing or at the appropriate age when it was advertised, like 18 or 17, whatever, depending on your country. But it's like a lot of people that I want to watch a horror film. They're like, oh, they're too scared. Oh, this and that. I'm just like, how does one convince someone to actually watch horror and kind of get them out of like the popular like cliche mindset when they haven't seen it, but they talk as if like, oh yeah, just go with what I'm saying, and it's like it's true about horror, but it's like half truths at best.
Like, how do you get someone into it when they're completely on the outside?
Yeah, like regardless if they have like a religious background or they're just too scared of the dark, so they need to sleep with a nightlight until their late 20s, or just they just have an irrational fear of clowns or holes.
Yeah. I think you just slowly like trickle down horror stuff, like because there's a lot of really great like entry level horror, or like horror for young adults or kids. Like weirdly enough, I don't even know when this movie came out, but Joe Dante did a movie called The Hole, completely
I
random
remember
movie.
that one.
Yeah, and I remember seeing that and being like, it was like right. I can't remember when I saw it or when it came out, but there's horror like that where it's like it's very approachable. It just has scary moments, and there's scary moments in things that aren't horror movies. Like I feel like everyone was traumatized if they saw Bilbo Baggins jump out and try to grab the ring when they were a kid. Like that scared the shit out of me.
So we're actually planning an episode where we're selecting our top 5 scariest scenes from movies that are not horror movies.
I love that.
Large Mark,
I love
not
that.
allowed.
Yeah. I feel like I don't want to like get too into it and spoil your episode, but I'm curious what the big ones are for you guys.
Okay, so one that I will reveal is the scene in Pinocchio where Lampwick. So Pinocchio has run off. He's doing all the things that he's not supposed to do. He's gambling. He's playing cards. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But so he's smoking, and his buddy whose name is Lampwick is like encouraging him to do all these things. But there are these kidnappers afoot that are turning kids into donkeys, and so.
Body horror.
And so there's this one scene where you witness Lampwick turning into a donkey, but you don't see him. You just see his shadow. You see the shadow transforming into a donkey.
Yep.
And it's just like the combination of him like crying for his mother and his voice slowly like turning into the braying of a donkey.
That's scary.
It's really scary. Yeah,
I love that. I love it so much. Like even just like the dark riders in Lord of the Rings. I guess that's another Lord of the Rings thing. But like these things that are like intentionally kind of scary were always like my favorite parts of, or my favorite scenes at least in those movies. Or I'd like really sit up for them at least. Maybe they're not my favorite, but like yeah. And I feel like that slowly got me into it personally. So that's funny. But Jack, what about you?
So you feel like that was your on-ramp. You were watching some normal movies and you're like, wait a minute, something different happened there. What is that?
Yeah, definitely. And also like I was a big Goosebumps kid, so that did a lot of work as well. Reading.
I was over watching Are You Afraid of the Dark? I was spoiled as a child. I always found that one to be scarier than Goosebumps, but that was just me being weird.
That was a legitimately scary show.
That was legit. Mine. Yeah. My horror moment in a movie that wasn't supposed to be scary. You guys ever seen Dudley Do Right? It was an old Brendan Fraser movie.
I don't. It
was like his follow up to George of the Jungle.
It's actually based on a segment from Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yeah, there's a scene where a vampire was feeding on a horse in that movie.
That'll do it.
I remember watching it.
Back up. What?
Yeah, it was a random comedy.
What is this movie about?
It was a random comedy. I was like maybe 11 or 12 when that movie came out. I'm just sitting there in the Costco watching a movie while my mom was doing the shopping. And then all of a sudden I see like this guy lean up against a horse and like he's drinking off the horse. And they're like, what are you doing? And the guy like has his fangs, the blood come out. I'm like, that's scary. This is a vampire movie? And then he flies off. I'm like, okay. All right, cool.
Interesting.
That's one of those random moments. I'm like, there's a vampire movie in there's a vampire moment in this kid's movie. Cool. All right. Next.
I feel like I haven't heard Dudley Do Right in years and years and years and years and years. You just like unlocked a very old memory for me. I don't think I've seen the movie, but I do remember the name.
It wasn't a good movie. Like, I remember sitting there like, all right, George of the Jungle was funny. I am waiting 20 minutes for this one.
That's one where I very vividly remember the cover, even though I haven't seen the movie. Like he's sitting backwards on a horse, and he's wearing the Mounties uniform, and he's saluting.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. But I've never seen the movie. So.
The movie sucked, but that was the only moment of note. I'm like, what the hell is this? And then boom, she ends. Back to your slapstick comedy from your low-ranked Jim Carrey and Brendan Fraser. Yes, I said what I said. He was trying to be a children's version of Jim Carrey in the early 90s. Anybody saying otherwise, you're wrong.
Almost an hour. You almost made it.
I remember enjoying George of the Jungle, but I have learned my lesson that comedies from like the early 2000s are usually really bad on rewatches. So just keep the memory. Don't mess with it.
I find it funny when you forget that a movie's like an early 2000s comedy or something. You just throw it on, and then they'll hit you with something that's so dated. And it's like a little jump scare where you're like, oh,
you can't say that anymore.
We've mentioned this on the podcast before, but dude, where's my car?
I haven't seen that movie.
Don't. See, I was telling you earlier to go watch Flesh Eater, right? Flesh Eater is horrible fun. It's funny horrible. Like, it's okay. Only certain people got hurt making that movie. Not many people did. Dude, where's my car? It's like, man, I'd rather go drink.
Offensively.
It's better just to go get drunk and kill your brain cells that way than watch it. You know, like.
There's two scenes that are still funny, but everything else is just kind of, it's just like weird, and there's stuff where it's like nobody would find this funny today. But
nobody found it funny back then. It was a memeable movie before memes came out. That's what that was. Dude, sweet. Dude, sweet. That's all it was.
That's what it seems I'm talking about.
What about you, Bolt? Did you have a horror thing? Like, did you have any scary scenes?
So for me, I do, but the thing is, like, I haven't fully seen this movie. I've seen like clips of it due to YouTubers just splicing these scenes randomly. I forget why it was in like the late 2000s. Like Watership Down.
Oh God.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that whole the whole thing.
Yes. It's like so that's the bare minimum of a form of content to kind of get to me. And I saw that like when I was in like high school, like scenes from that. I'm just like, who would put this together and why? And it just stood out.
I love it though now when like because I don't watch a ton of kids movies now, but I feel like sometimes I'll be watching something and something really dark will happen. And I'm like, okay, so they're still doing this. Like they're still putting like little traumatizing things into these movies, which I think is actually kind of important, like to do some dark stuff in kids movies because, you know, it's kind of realistic and it's kind of important to feel those things. But that's, Watership Down is, oof.
I'm looking at the rating for this. I mean, this came out in like 1978 and is labeled as a PG family/adventure film. I'm like, what kind of lie is this?
That was PG back in the day. Just like the original Ninja Turtles movie was PG, and they had kids smoking in that one.
That made more sense than this one. How is this a family adventure film?
This was before.
There were rabbits.
Yeah, killer rabbit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it. It's just a rabbit fight sequence. Bloody rabbit fight sequence. There's your parental guidance. That's it. Your parents can explain to you two rabbits beating each other up. We're from New York. People fight in the street all the time on the way down the road, walking down the street. It happens.
It's not the same thing.
They're not rabbits, to be fair.
They're fine. They're not rabbits that are cute and cuddly. But yes. So, you guys have more questions. I'm asking some random. Oh wait, there's actually one other thing I wanted to tell you guys. One horror sequence in a movie that I've always wondered why this was here. I said I was gonna clip it. We'll talk about it here. Did you guys ever see Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
No. I haven't.
I believe so. That's the one with Large Marge.
Large Marge. That's like the most notable scene in that movie. Large Marge. Everyone's like, Why was
We
this
should turn
here?
around. There's the skeleton.
It's like, that's where the
Eyeballs.
car crashed. Nah. And he's like, huh? That's where I died. He's like, what? Why are you saying that you died? You're like right here. He gets out of the car. Oh man, life can be scarier on its own. But yes.
Trauma for many children, I've heard. But I avoided it somehow as a kid.
Lucky you guys. My dad my house there was no Disney. My dad was kind of like, listen, I had you kids young, so when we go to the movie video store, you're going to go pull me horror films. Just come back. That's all. Just go pull a horror movie from the rack randomly. I don't care what you pull. Just pull something nice. I showed up one time with a chipmunk. Alvin and the Chipmunks. He's like, it's Halloween, but no. Take this and go into that section and come back.
So Halloween specials didn't count.
No, they didn't count.
Okay.
They didn't count. Not at all. So I grew up with
Fair enough.
Actually, I'm going to ask you a question. I ask everybody this. Have you ever heard of Full Moon Features? Am I the only one that heard of those? Bloodstone, The Puppet Master. See, that's how bad my life was.
The Puppet Master, I've heard of.
Puppet Master. Yeah, the Puppet Master. Blades and all that stuff. See, I was actually exposed to those as a child. And a lot of people...
Oh, yeah. I've seen images from Puppet Master. But...
Yeah, my dad would rent those movies like on repeat and marathon them when we were kids. He's like, rewind this one, put that one in, please. Okay. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
that sounds very formative.
It's crazy. Like I remember watching a few kids' movies, but not that many growing up. It was more so like, what is it? Like, this is horror. This is what we like to watch here. Our whole family gets along with it. We're doing that. My first real superhero movie was Blade that I remember going to go see in the theater when I was a kid.
Nice.
Yes. So you mentioned you were trying to do superhero movies before? The X-Men ones?
Flawless transition.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yes. Yeah.
Blade is the bridge.
Blade is the bridge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I was trying to do X-Men stuff like as the first short films that I made with like felt costumes and everything. It was really great stuff.
That sounds a lot better than the X-Men we got in theaters. I won't lie to you.
Some of them. I assure you, I was butchering the lore. I thought I knew it. I did not.
You probably could not do any worse than the movies were.
Some of them. I think some, because I did love some of those X-Men movies, even the ones that were bad at that time. Like I remember watching The Last Stand. Oh, you know what? Speaking of, there's a random gnarly scene at the opening scene of The Last Stand. I don't know if this is too random to bring up, but is a character like self-mutilating themselves. It's like
yeah,
dark. And I remember, and it's a little bit of, for me at the time, it was a little bit of a jump scare. I was like, what is this gore you're putting in my 10-year-old face? But yeah, that inspired me, I guess.
Well, so I'm much older because I remember seeing The Last Stand in high school and everybody was freaking out when the X-Men started getting bumped off in that one. That was the thing with that one. Like when she comes out of the lake and she's kind of like all red and shiny, and then Cyclops is like, Jean! And then he died because he had to go do Superman Returns.
He's just floating sunglasses. Yeah.
So did he get Thanos before Thanos was a thing? Did he get like dusted before that was a thing? Is that what happened to Cyclops in that movie?
They don't even show you what happens to him. He just like his like veins start freaking out, and then you come back to that scene and he's gone, which is frustrating. I think people hated that about that moment.
Professor X, though, you saw what happened to him.
Oh, he does get Thanos. Yeah. He like bursts.
I knew somebody bursted into something. I'm like, wait a minute, that's the only reason I like this movie. The X-Men actually getting bumped off.
Yeah. Yeah, she totally starts doing that to people. Forgot that. Man.
All right, do you guys have any other ones? I'm going to ask one other random question.
Let's see any other horrors, more horrific non-horror scenes for the episode.
Cool.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. We have talked about the difference between horror and between horror films and horrific movies.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
What would be like a horrific movie?
So, have you seen David Fincher's Seven with Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt? Yeah, I would call that a horrific film. It's not a horror film.
Yeah, it's such an interesting conversation, right? Or like the thriller versus horror conversation, because I feel like I think Seven is kind of lumped in with horror often. Silence of the Lambs as well, which I think is more horror, but it's like you could so clearly make the argument it's a thriller, but there's enough that's horror that like it's like inducted into it. Even Pan's Labyrinth is not really a horror movie, but it's got that one scene.
Imagery is what makes it.
Yeah, and it's got the Pale Man scene is horror. Like that is gnarly and scary, and but a lot of the movie isn't, and so it's like, is it a horror movie? And like I would say it is, but I can totally hear the argument otherwise.
The scary thing in Pan's Labyrinth is what she's dealing with outside of the labyrinth. With the
which is like a war movie though.
Yeah.
It's not exactly it's hard to say on its own that is a horror movie. It's like the mix between the two. And again, that one Pale Man scene that it's like, no, this is a horror movie. At least in this moment, it's a horror movie. So, or like Sloth in Seven, that scene is out of a horror movie. But, right?
Yeah, that one freaks me out still.
Yeah, that's the most disturbing scene. Definitely, that's the one that comes closest to horror because that guy is almost like a monster.
Totally.
If there's a creature in the movie,
totally,
that's it. Yeah, but it just kind of doesn't. It doesn't have it doesn't have the feel of a horror movie, and it's kind of hard to describe. But there's never the sense that there's something around the corner that's waiting for you. It doesn't build tension in the same way.
Yeah, because like look at something like Longlegs as a recent example, where like that is almost on the side. I mean, that's clearly a horror movie because it has that kind of there's something around the corner feel that you're talking about, right? And it does end up going in that territory. But as far as what we actually see, a lot of it you could compare it to like a Silence of the Lambs or a Seven. But in Silence of the Lambs is also like that's one that's harder, right? But he is a cannibal. Yeah. So it's like, okay, there's that thing that is so clearly a horror thing that it kind of makes it more horror. It's interesting. Yeah.
Another thing about horror that I think kind of that I think Silence of the Lambs kind of teeters on is that I think that horror is a fundamentally unserious genre. Like I think it needs to be a little extravagant, almost a little cartoonish in order for it to be. What you mean. In order for it to be a horror film instead of just a film that deals with very dark events. So the fact that he's a cannibal that wears a scary mask and has Anthony Hopkins, creepy voice that
we're gonna gloss over Buffalo Bill.
Does. Yeah.
Oh my God. Gloss over him.
We're gonna gloss over him dancing in that weird trench coat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That kind of thing too.
So I would have been the worst person in '94 in that theater. I would have been laughing my ass off.
But it's still enough of a genre, or it's still enough of a drama to not be all in on being a horror film. Mm-hmm. But Seven doesn't have really much like that. Like Kevin Spacey's villain isn't cartoonish in any way. He's scary in his own way, but he's not. He doesn't have like a thing. He doesn't have a signature. He doesn't have a mask. He doesn't use like a particular weapon. So I feel like Seven doesn't engage with enough of the tropes in order for it to really be a horror movie.
Yeah. No, I definitely know what you mean. It is a really interesting conversation though. Like, because there are people who would classify and just lump it in, and I kind of get it as well.
People who do.
And then you look at movies, there are people. But it's interesting to look at a movie that's like, okay, I just saw Audition the other day for the first time.
I remember that one.
Oh my god. Oh my god. You can't do that to me. But that's the kind of movie where like that movie doesn't have really an ounce of whimsy in it. Not really. Right. But it's definitely a horror movie because of the extent that it goes, and it's like completely bleak. So Yeah, 7 doesn't quite go there. Where like, yeah, if they showed the head in the box and did more of that stuff, maybe it would kind of they could play up that angle. But but the line is interesting because there are movies that I think don't have what you're talking about with that kind of over the top, unserious nature, but are horror because of how they show what they have.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, the other piece is that there's something around the corner that's waiting for you.
Right. Just that,
So
actually,
that doesn't need to be a cartoonish thing, but it's still, yeah.
What's funny was
like that bag.
The least cartoonish movie we did, the least cartoonishly scary movie we did on here was the cartoon one.
Right. Yes, that's true.
What's that?
Perfect Blue.
Oh,
I haven't seen it.
Oh. So
it's an anime from the 90s.
It's an anime film. It's aged really well.
Yeah.
But of all the films,
gnarly? Like,
yeah,
it is. I didn't know that.
It's one of those things. Like, well, I'll give a bit of background on it. Black Swan ripped the guy who did Black Swan, Aronofsky. He took a lot of shots from Perfect Blue and a lot of the themes from Perfect Blue. And then what's even crazier is it's aged really well with the level of how stalker and like people have become more stalker-like nowadays in the parasocial relationships on the internet. But what's even crazier is the death sequences in that one were not funny, and you could not find anything humorous about anything happening in this film at all. At all. Yeah. Like, there was nothing at any given point that it was funny, and I'm like, why is it that the first, possibly the only animated movie we did on here was the one that went the hardest?
Interesting.
It's the medium. It's allowed to go the farthest.
What was that, Bolt?
Like, animation is a medium that you allow to push boundaries that you just can't get in real life action movies. It's just it's just the limitations are just different.
You could have gotten those. The problem is it went hard.
So I think it's like an inherent limiter that prevents us from achieving the same effect. But I don't know. That's just a headcanon or observation.
No, I get that.
Yeah. So in several places, I've heard people talk about how certain genres are protected. Like if your movie fits into a particular genre, you're allowed to do things that you wouldn't be able to do if it fit into some other box.
Totally.
There's this interview. Eli Roth used to do a podcast called The History of Horror, and he had one episode where he interviewed Ari Aster, the guy who did Hereditary and Midsommar. And Ari Aster was talking about how he was able to do some really brutal and dark things in Midsommar that he wouldn't be able to do if it weren't a horror film. If he had made it with kind of more of the flavor of a genre, it would just be too much for people. Yeah. We talked about this a few episodes back where the focus of the episode was on Midsommar, and my comment was that I actually disagreed with Ari Aster about his movie. There were parts of that movie that were a little too intense for me, and even before I listened to this interview, I had the thought, it's like these moments, it doesn't feel like a horror movie. It feels like you're just showing me the brutal thing without covering it with the tropes of the genre that make it more palatable.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I just the other night I went to see, there was a screening here for Bring Her Back, the new Filippo Brothers movie, the guys who did Talk to Me, and the conversation around it has been exactly what you're saying, where it's like there's brutality in it, and the question is it warranted for what it is? Because it's really brutal, and a lot of the horror is simply the brutality. And it's like, is that doing what it should in that case? It's interesting. I'd be curious when you see that movie. I'd be curious if you feel the same way. But
okay, yeah.
We're leaving you in our Discord, so we're actually having a pretty sweet conversation today. So I'm like, yeah, you're allowed to pop in whenever you want, whenever we do our thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think, what all of you think of that one. But yeah,
I actually remember seeing the poster for this one. I wonder if I got an advance offer for this one. A24 tends to send me their stuff once in a blue off of TikTok.
That's awesome.
I'm just lazy and I don't check the emails.
Well, if you do get one, you should go.
Yeah. No,
but it comes out soon. I think it's like 2 weeks or something.
Yeah, the last time I saw some really weird Nicolas Cage movie where he was hunting buffalo. It was 2 hours. It sounded like a horror movie, so I thought it was going to be cool. I agreed to watch it, and then it just went on like 2 hours, him shooting buffalo. Hold on, man. Let me find the name.
Just random.
It was him. It was a movie. Like, they sent me like, oh, influencer copy. Just write a review for us, please. So I go ahead and I watch it, and I'm like, this is a movie of Nicolas Cage just shooting buffalo for like 2 hours. And it sounded scary from the description. I'm going to look it up right now, the name. If you Google Nicolas Cage shooting buffalo, there you go, Butcher's Crossing. See, the name sounded cool. It talks about him going a little nuts. And you don't. It's a waste of 2 hours. I saw it 2 years ago. It's just him out in the woods with some kid shooting buffalo. And then the buffalo skins are worthless. There, I saved you 2 boobless hours. Don't waste your time with that one.
How dare you ruin Butcher's Crossing for me? How dare you?
I feel like Nicolas Cage doesn't say no to any script.
No, he doesn't. He's going through bankruptcy.
There are some actors that have like things written in their contract, but like my character has to end up this way. I think there's nothing in Nicolas Cage's contract like that. Just like, give me anything.
Do you know like the true really horror spooky story with Nicolas Cage? You find out about it in New Orleans when you go visit.
I don't think so.
So
maybe it'll ring a bell, but
when Katrina hit, he went down to supposedly help New Orleans, right? But what he was really doing was buying up a lot of property at dirt cheap prices and boasting about how he was making a great deal. And then he chose to top it off by buying a plot in Lafayette Cemetery. That's like their signature cemetery down there. He bought one. What he didn't know is where he bought his plot, it's down like within eye shot of Marie Laveau, which is the voodoo queen. So the plot is erected. Suddenly, Nicolas Cage stops getting good movies. If you turn out that he's not paying his taxes anymore, he gets hit with a tax beef, he gets hit with a bunch of other stuff, and then the IRS seizes all his properties. But because of New Orleans law, the only thing that he has left to his name is his really weird, extravagant pyramid-shaped grave that he's going to be buried in that is within eye shot of Marie Laveau's grave. Like, you can see it.
Wow.
Like, if you look to the left, it's like maybe 10 yards out, you can see Marie Laveau's grave, which is right next to Nicolas Cage's. And people are like, yeah, they call it the curse of Marie Laveau. She was New Orleans' patron queen. And then he's here bragging about losing stuff. He bought a graveyard in the elite area, and now he's doing these really weird... For every one long legs, he gets Butcher's Crossing, Parents Aren't Home, some other weird movie where he was like drugged out of his mind, Rainfield.
The Wicker Man?
Wicker
Man. Jesus.
The bad one.
The bad, yeah.
Punching a lady in a bear outfit.
The butterfly effect of Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah,
is Butcher's Crossing.
Yes, it is. And then I was here like, Butcher's Crossing sounds like a good name. Nicolas Cage doing a lot of harm. Why don't I watch this? And I'm like, okay, I have no opinion. I just wasted 2 hours.
It sounds like everything that I would like. It sounds like it's a horror movie. It sounds like it takes place in the West.
It's not scary. It's just boring.
It sounds like a great movie, but...
I feel like he got high and started shooting a rifle, and the guy was too scared to tell him no. So you just see him shooting a rifle for like an hour. It's weird.
At least you got an advance offer for it. You got to go see it before anyone else.
It would be cool. If they just sent me a Vimeo link, and they're like, "Here you go."
Oh, okay. So you just watched it on your...
Yeah, I watched it on my laptop. That's the worst part. I had the option to leave, but I'm like...
That's rough.
Can't say no to this.
Damn.
Then I cleansed my palate by watching Flesh Eater. Right, Bolt?
Right. Okay, I think it's time to wrap up. Final thoughts, Dylan Clark?
From me?
Yeah.
Well,
I will be watching Flesh Eater and Butcher's Crossing.
Oh, God.
And I will get back to you both, to all of you. And I want to hear about Bring Her Back. That'll be our exchange of information.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Do you have anything? Well, I asked you earlier, but is there anything coming up that we can be on the lookout for? I'll gladly do a reshare for you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, thank you. We shot this short last year that we've been like kind of in this endless post-production situation on, but hopefully that's coming out pretty soon. I don't know exactly what's going on because it's we just had to figure out some extra post-production things, but that is one that's kind of been in the chamber for a while. And then, like I said, otherwise just writing features, hoping to make one soon. But yeah, I wouldn't say anything if I could. Not to say I can't, but I won't speak that out of existence quite yet. So we're working pretty hard on a couple of different things there, and hopefully one of them makes it all the way.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
It was actually a lot of fun having you on, and if time and everything does sync out, it would be nice to have you on again so we can go over some of the other stuff. Personally, just to hear what you think about Flesh Eater, because that one's that one.
I would love to hear what you have to say about Flesh Eater. So one thing, I will rehash something that I said on our Flesh Eater episode.
Okay. I
used to laugh at the kind of like lower level Oscar awards, like best sound design. Because I'm like, sound design, what is that?
Yeah.
What do you even do? But then I watched Flesh Eater, and I realized that sound design can be done extremely poorly. So now I'm all in on best sound design. That is
interesting. I thought that was going to go a different direction. You were going to say you understood why the award was made just for Flesh Eater.
Well, let's just say it's because of and spite of Flesh Eater that this awards exist now.
And not because of it.
In spite of.
There are some things that you really only appreciate when you see them done. When you see them done really badly. So it's just
yes,
like a sex sequence too. There's like. There's like one the same sound design scene that he's talking about. You just see that like
I don't want any spoilers.
You'll see what I'm talking about.
I'm gonna watch this movie.
You get confused if you're watching porn for like a couple minutes there, and I'm like, this is a zombie movie, right?
Really? He's right.
Really?
The sad thing is, we can spoil this movie for you. It will not change your viewing experience. If anything, we'll probably be underselling it.
Oh God!
Sorry.
Wow, very encouraging.
Awesome. If you think The Room is the worst movie that's ever been put together with some kind of competency, you're wrong. Go Flesh Eater.
I am actually curious if this will be worse than I'm expecting or not, because I do feel I've seen a lot of really bad, like unspeakably bad movies. But you guys are hyping this up, so I'm very curious.
Zach is hyping this up.
It's entertaining.
Yes,
it's entertaining.
It's entertainingly bad.
That's good.
Yeah. There are bad movies that are just bad, and it's like, why did I waste an hour and a half of my life? But this is worth your time.
It's like a how not to.
Good.
It's a how not to shoot a zombie movie. It's like the manual. I'm sorry. Okay.
Very good. I'll definitely let you guys know.
So we will be on the lookout for the short that comes up. When it pops up, I'm subscribed to you, so hopefully I'll get the notice as soon as it pops up.
Awesome.
And I'll gladly cut a small piece and retweet it for you over on mine. That's what I do.
Oh, thank you.
I usually cut out 10 seconds and put it up. And I try to share links. TikTok is annoying. They haven't given us the option to put links in, but I usually just put the name and everything of the movie on there. And I believe in doing that. Gotcha. I hate it when you go online, then you see just a clip of a movie, subtitles, but they don't tell you what movie it is. Like, come on, man, tell me what movie this is.
Are all, where is this from?
Yeah. So in my end, I put the year, date, and then I sometimes will put even like whatever scene it is just to show the clip. I'm like, that's how I got started. Rated X, Night of the Living Dead. I actually saw the Rated X, but I mean it's like the classic director's cut. So you couldn't
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I actually posted a clip of that was all edited out from the 90s one. That's how I got started. I'm like, get out, guys. I found the scene.
Oh, awesome.
And it went viral.
Oh, cool.
So
that's awesome.
That's what I do for folks. I upload and highlight the sequences. So if I see it, when I see it, I'll cut a clip, or you tell me what clip you like, and I'll gladly share it with people.
No, I appreciate it. Well, thank you for having me on too. It was good to chat, talk horror, and everything. And yeah, hopefully
now you're gonna go watch Flesh Eater.
Yes, right now, actually, right now. No, we'll see. We'll see when the night speaks to me.
Yes.
But anyways,
thank you for everything. It was actually worth the wait on this one. Nice talking to you.